What happens if you eat 30 grams of fiber every day for 30 days? Well, the results will shock you. And I'm going to show you a day-by-day and week-to-week timeline of exactly what happens inside your body. And the transformation you can expect in just 30 days is more profound than most people realize. This is an exercise I do with my own patients, and I'm continuously blown away by the results they see in just 30 days. And this isn't just about digestion or gut health. This will transform your energy and your immune system, and it will help you with mental clarity. And this will also help with your inflammation, which plays a role in so many chronic diseases today. Now, most people think they're eating enough fiber, but the average intake in the US is only about 15 grams per day, or half of what's recommended. Oh, and by the way, a very important PSA. If you're not getting much fiber now, do not jump straight to 30 grams. Your gut bacteria will not be ready, and you'll likely get gas and bloating and diarrhea or constipation. But stick around to learn how to work up to 30 grams per day safely, and I'll talk about that at the end of the video. And as per usual, even though I'm a physician, I'm not your physician, so please talk to your doctor before you make any changes to your nutrition regimen, as this video is educational only and not medical advice. Okay, so what's amazing about this journey is you can actually start seeing changes as early as day 1. So you've increased your fiber, but not too much yet, and it could be as little as a tablespoon of chia seeds in your morning yogurt or a cup of broccoli with dinner. Well, inside your body, the insoluble fiber starts adding bulk to your stool, and the soluble fiber begins to dissolve in water, and it forms a gel that slows down your digestion. And we'll talk about the differences between soluble fiber and insoluble fiber later in the video and why you actually need both. But even at this stage, on day 1, your body's already taking first steps towards steady blood sugar and longer lasting energy. So what you'll notice is you're feeling a little fuller after meals, and you have less hunger, and you'll have less thoughts about food between meals. But right now, your gut bacteria are just getting the raw materials, but they won't start processing them until the next day. Now, day 2 is when fermentation begins. All that extra fiber from day 1 has now reached your large intestine. And this is where your gut bacteria ferment the fiber into short chain fatty acids. So those would be mainly butyrate and propionate and acetate. Now, the reason these are so important is because butyrate feeds the cell linings of your colon, and it reinforces that crucial gut barrier. And this is what will eventually slash your inflammation levels. And propionate is important because it sends signals to the liver to produce less cholesterol, and it helps control appetite. And finally, acetate helps break down fat cells. And there are animal studies to show that acetate can even burn up liver fat. So lots of therapeutic effects and healing effects are happening even at this stage on day 2. But you're still far from feeling the full effects just yet. But you may start noticing changes in your bowel movements, and lots of people may experience more gas, but this is also the time when a lot of people may start noticing a subtle mental clarity boost. And all of these short chain fatty acids are just starting to accumulate, but in just a few days, this is where you're going to see logarithmic growth of these healing compounds. Now, as we get to day 3, you get more and more soluble fiber in your diet, and what you start noticing is it takes longer for the food to leave your stomach, and that means you're staying fuller longer. And the big change you'll start seeing is that slower carbohydrate absorption now leads to smaller glucose spikes, and you feel less crashes after meals or less fatigue in the afternoon. So your energy levels now go up, and they stay more consistent, and amazingly, your brain fog is now starting to go away. So now the changes that we barely started noticing the day before are now amplifying, and they're growing to a point where you no longer want to snack between meals, and your cravings for sweets are starting to fade. But the biggest digestive improvement, the one that can completely transform your mornings, is still yet to come. So let's fast forward to day 7, where by the end of the first week, something important has now happened. This is when the first real shift inside the gut happens. The bacteria in your colon that specialize in breaking down fiber, so these would be the bifidobacteria and lactobacillus, are now multiplying at a faster and faster rate. And there's speculation that increased fiber can increase the levels of Akkermansia, which is an incredibly important bacteria that is associated with improved metabolic health. But there's no strong data yet that shows this direct link, and currently the easiest way to get Akkermansia is probably as a probiotic supplement. Okay, at this stage, we're getting more and more beneficial bacteria, and these bacteria are producing more short-chain fatty acids like butyrate to a point where you're now seeing it affect your immune system. So we see an increase in regulatory T cells, which keeps your immune system from overreacting to harmless things. And this helps lower your overall inflammation. And at this point, you're seeing less bloating and you're seeing less hunger swings, because these short-chain fatty acids stimulate your natural GLP-1 hormone, which is what you get from drugs like Ozempic or Wegovy or Mounjaro or Zepbound. And at this stage, your energy levels are even more balanced throughout the day because your glucose levels are normalizing and the sugars are just not spiking to as high of levels as they used to. And now that your digestion is running more smoothly, your microbiome is about to undergo a major transformation, which for most people doesn't start happening until day 14. Now, at the 2-week mark, something remarkable is happening deep in your colon. And it's not just about regular bowel movements anymore. This is the point where your gut microbiome is starting to restructure itself. Up until now, the bacterial species in your gut have been adjusting to the new food supply, because on a low fiber diet, many of your microbes have been living off simple carbs and proteins. But now, with a steady 30 grams of fiber per day, you're starting to see amazing growth of all the good bacteria that we already talked about. And this is the point where butyrate, which is that good healing short-chain fatty acid, is finally the preferred fuel for your colon cells that line the inside of your intestines. And when colon cells burn butyrate for energy, they consume oxygen, which lowers your oxygen levels in the gut lumen. And this is good news because most beneficial gut microbes prefer low oxygen environments, while many harmful pathogens, they usually thrive when there's a lot of oxygen. Now, another amazing thing that's now happening, but it's happening on a genetic level. And it's happening because butyrate also works on gene expression. So it acts like a specialized substance called histone deacetylase inhibitor, which turns on anti-inflammatory pathways that will help with leaky gut and fatty liver and even colon cancer. And day 14 is the point where you're accumulating enough acetate, which is that other beneficial short-chain fatty acid. And now this extra acetate is now circulating in your peripheral tissues, and it even crosses the blood-brain barrier. And this is what helps regulate your appetite and your cravings in the hypothalamus. Now, on the outside, because of that reduced inflammation, what you're seeing is your skin now appears calmer and more even, and even your joint pain is starting to improve. And as you head into week 3, a lot of people start seeing a sizable change in their gut ecosystem, where the bacteria species that thrive on fiber are taking up more and more real estate. And these good bacteria are now crowding out harmful bacteria that cause bloating and inflammation and unhealthy metabolism. Now, by the time you get to the 3-week mark, your new microbiome is starting to stabilize. But now you may start seeing ripple effects in other parts of your body, like your heart and your blood vessels. And the most amazing thing that we see at this point is how your body starts processing cholesterol. So one of those short-chain fatty acids, propionate, is now flooding your liver, and they inhibit an enzyme called HMG-CoA reductase, which is the same enzyme that is targeted by statin drugs. And this is what slows down your liver's production of atherogenic particles like LDL and apolipoprotein B or ApoB, which are known to cause heart disease. Now, on top of that, the soluble fibers in your gut are also binding bile acids in the intestine. And normally, bile acids are just reabsorbed and recycled. But when fiber traps them, they actually get excreted, which forces your liver to pull more ApoB and more LDL from your bloodstream, thus lowering the damage that they can cause to your heart or your blood vessels. But it's not just cholesterol. This constant supply of short-chain fatty acids is now binding your endothelium, which is the lining of your blood vessels. And that triggers nitric oxide production. And this is what naturally lowers your blood pressure. So you have less ApoB or LDL, and you have better blood pressure control. And that equals a much healthier heart. And at this point, you may notice a lower resting heart rate, and you may even start seeing greater exercise endurance because your blood vessels now become more efficient in delivering oxygen to your muscles. So the changes that you see after just 21 days can have the potential to show a significant reduction in your lifetime cardiovascular risk, which means less heart attacks and less strokes in the future. Now, as you finally get to day 30, at this point, your body's operating in a completely different environment compared to when you first started. And it's not just your digestion and your gut. The changes are happening everywhere. They're happening in your immune system and in your metabolism, and you see changes in your heart and your brain and your blood vessels. So what's different compared to day 1? Well, at this point, the fiber fermenting bacteria are now the dominant players in your microbiome. microbiome. So now you have this well-oiled machine that continuously pumps out short-chain fatty acids, which then benefits all your other major organs, not just your GI tract. And now your colon may be running exclusively on butyrate, which keeps the gut barrier tight and leak-proof. So there's less endotoxins leaking into the bloodstream. And this is how you get less inflammation. And this is how you fix your immune system, which is now more robust and it's more efficient at communicating between its different components. And we talked about better glucose control and improved cholesterol and better blood pressure. But the benefit that surprises a lot of people is cognitive clarity. All that extra acetate that is produced in your gut travels to the brain and improves the signaling in your neural networks. So at this point, you may start noticing things like faster recall and better focus and more stable mood. And at this stage, your body has essentially retrained itself to operate with a high fiber input as the norm. And the longer you're able to continue this, the more resilience you'll build on a cellular and molecular levels. Okay, if you're ready to start 30 grams of fiber per day, the way you start is just as important as the target you're aiming for. So jumping from your typical American 10 to 15 grams of fiber per day straight to 30 grams of fiber, well, that's just a recipe for bloating and upset stomach and gas because your gut bacteria just won't be ready for that. Instead, think of this as training your microbiome. So you got to give it small but consistent increases so your beneficial bacteria populations have time to adjust. So here's a simple system. Start by tracking how much fiber you're eating now for a few days, and then increase your fiber intake by 3 to 5 grams every 7 days. And you want to get a wide variety of fiber that includes both soluble and insoluble fiber. And soluble fiber is the one that you get from oats and beans and lentils, and you can also get it from apples and pears and berries and avocados. This is the fiber that forms a gel in your digestive tract, and it feeds the beneficial bacteria, and it produces those important short-chain fatty acids. And you also need insoluble fiber, which you would get from whole grains and nuts and seeds and leafy greens. Just think of your typical salad vegetables. And this is the fiber that adds bulk to your stool, and it speeds up that transit time in your gut, and it helps keep you regular. And most important of all, the slower you go, the less GI issues you're gonna have to deal with. And one last tip, but this is a very important point. You have to drink more water as you add more fiber. Water is absolutely necessary for fiber to produce its benefits. And if you don't get enough water, this is what leads to lots of bad cramping and bloating and really bad constipation. All right, I hope this was helpful. Stay healthy, and I'll see you in the next one.